Hey everyone, Happy New Year and hope you've had a good Christmas. I'm sorry I couldn't make this video in time for Christmas, but oh well, it's a new decade. Not that it matters much anyway, because calling Sega's Yakuza series Christmas games is sort of like calling Die Hard a Christmas movie. They're both very loosely set around Christmas, but who cares? They're both awesome, so you can just ignore it.
Some of you Yakuza fans out there though, or Yakuza fans, take your pick, may be wondering why I'm starting with Yakuza Kiwami and not from the very beginning of the series with the original PS2 game from 2005. Well, to be fair on my end, Yakuza Kiwami is actually a 2017 remake of the original game, and I'm mainly doing this one because I've only just started getting into the series since last year, with my first game being Yakuza Kiwami. I had absolutely no knowledge of the Yakuza series other than their like Japanese Grand Theft Auto, and after playing Kiwami and its sequel, as well as Yakuza 0, 3, and 4 at this current time, I gotta say they're nothing of the sort. The only similarities the Yakuza series has with Grand Theft Auto is that they're both open world games where you explore a city, play some minigames here and there, and improve your relationships with people. That's it. Aside from that, Yakuza games are always about beating the crap out of thugs that want to fight you because they didn't like the way you looked at them.
No, I'm serious, that can't actually happen.
And there's usually some complicated business linking to the Yakuza happening to our protagonist Kazuma Kiryu, or just Kiryu as everybody calls him. The source of the problem always leads to somebody in one of the dozen or so Yakuza clans acting too big for their britches. No one is ever happy with the position they're in, so they want to make it hard for everyone else. And somehow Kiryu is roped into every single situation. Play one Yakuza game and you've pretty much played them all, but you know what, that's not really a bad thing. Even though the stories can feel a bit samey after a couple of games, each Yakuza game always brings something new to the table, mostly in the form of new moves, new mini-games, new side stories, and even new characters to play as. I can't quite confirm this fact, but I believe a good amount of Yakuza's inspiration came from the Shenmue games, another Sega property. I actually just finished playing the original Shenmue for the first time around a couple months ago, and have done a little bit of the sequel in the HD collection. And oh man, have these games not aged well. The second one's alright, it can still be a little tedious, but it definitely improves a lot of things from its predecessor. The first game, however, I really don't understand how this was seen as good even back then. Very clunky fighting mechanics, so much walking around talking to people, so much waiting with no proper way to speed up the time, and I seriously could not believe it made you do a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday forklift job for a good third of the game. I thought this had to be a joke. Shenmue 1 was both a fascinating and hilariously bad game. I had a fantastic time poking fun at it with my brother, and I'd like to think Yakuza just took the basic idea of Shenmue and, you know, made it good. I know I've already given a general idea of how every Yakuza story goes, but what the heck, let's quickly see what Kiwami does with itself. I won't be giving a full plot synopsis like I usually do because I get the feeling they're not really worth going that deep into. But if you really want me to, then let me know in the comments and I'll do so for future Yakuza reviews. Welcome to Kumbaru Show. Hope you like it because we're going to be spending a lot of Yakuza games in this place. It's a very busy city in Tokyo, filled with all sorts of violence, gang wars, and of course incidents with the Yakuza, which Kiryu seems to be a part of, serving as the lieutenant of the Dojima family. Not gonna lie, this first hour can be a bit of a slow burn. You only get yourself in a few fights, which are spread apart to teach you the basic fighting mechanics, but you're mostly running around Kamurocho trying to get this ring for Kiryu's childhood friend Yumi, which instantly makes her fall in love with him. Clearly though, the appreciation should have gone to Kiryu's best friend Nishikiyama, or Nishiki for short. He prepared his gift at least a month in advance and still gets friend-zoned by Yumi, while Kiryu got his gift at the very last minute. Wow, what a jerk. Well, Kiryu will certainly get what's coming to him, as several hours later he sees that Nishiki has shot down the head of the Dojima family after he tried to sexually assault Yumi, but Kiryu decides to take the fall for him as the cops come rushing in. He gets imprisoned for 10 whole years, but he keeps to himself most of the time and tries his best not to get into prison brawls, though that doesn't stop some of the other inmates wanting a piece of him. 10 years eventually pass and Kiryu is finally on parole, but he finds that he's been expelled from the Yakuza by the Tojo clan, the big organization that holds all the families together, so now he's just an average citizen. However, Kiryu quickly discovers that 10 billion yen has been stolen from the Tojo clan's private bank and now everybody wants it. Not only that, but Yumi also seems to have disappeared since the incident 10 years ago and may have some connection to the lost money. And Nishiki now controls his own family, slowly building up his jealousy of Kiryu and becoming his newfound rival after being continuously told how much more competent Kiryu is. At some point, Kiryu gets help from Detective Date, who's also looking for the robber and wants to know what they're using the money for. There's a little girl named Haruka who may be related to Yumi, and Kiryu gradually forms a fatherly bond with, and he'll frequently cross paths with his frenemy, Goro Majima. Majima is the greatest character to ever exist. He is cuckoo beyond belief and absolutely obsessed with fighting Kiryu, going to the extent of dressing like a police officer, hiding in trash cans, luring him to an exotic dance club, and starting a damn zombie outbreak. And that's just a sample of the crazy stuff he pulls. Majima and Kiryu are complete polar opposites, but that's kind of why the relationship between them works so well. Majima doesn't resent Kiryu in any way, he just wants to have a friendly bout, and little by little, Kiryu starts getting his fighting spirit back. This is all I can really talk about with the plot without going too far into spoiler territory, but I will say it's definitely a lot more simple than the later games will be. Most of the characters are pretty likable. I of course enjoy any amount of screen time between Kiryu and Majima, and I really like the father-daughter connection between Kiryu and Haruka. Haruka's so gosh darn precious in Kiwami, often joking around with Kiryu and helping him feel a little more loose. Nishiki can be a whiny little bitch a lot of the time, but I do genuinely feel sorry for him, constantly being reminded that he's never going to live up to Kiryu's standards and making him feel worthless. Interestingly though, there isn't any English voice acting in Kiwami in almost every single Yakuza game. It's all in Japanese with English subtitles, which I think fits the style of the game pretty well. It's set in Japan after all, so it only makes sense to have everyone speak in Japanese, because the last time they tried having English voice acting...
Kazuki-san, what are you doing? No! I can't let you pay them! These assholes don't deserve our money!
Yeah, it didn't go so well.
Assholes?
One other thing I would say really gives Yakuza games an advantage is that they do not take themselves seriously by any means. Sure, it has its dramatic moments, but it's the spectacle and over-the-top action that steal the show. You can dive into Kiryu's inner struggles all you want, but there is no greater satisfaction than picking up an entire goddamn sofa and smashing it onto a groveling thug.
At its core, this is what Yakuza is all about, pulling off different melee combos, earning experience points with every foe you defeat, and upgrading your moveset, health, and attack power as you go. Kiryu's been to prison for 10 years, so it's your job to help get his groove back. Combos mostly involve mashing the punch button a hell of a lot of times and pressing the kick button to finish, but kicks have a few of their own combos too. It's vaguely similar to Hyrule or Fire Emblem Warriors if you need something to compare it to. Even if you haven't played those games, however, punching and kicking should come to you pretty naturally, and with each blow you land, you'll gradually build up this blue meter called the heat gauge. Then, filling it past a certain point will let you perform what's known as a heat action. These are special attacks that deal a fair bit of damage and also varies depending on the condition of Kiryu, the enemy, what object you may be carrying, as well as what fighting style you're currently using. I'll come to that last one in a second. For example, there's a heat action you can activate if an enemy's lying on the floor, or if you're carrying a knife to stab him in the gut. Why stop there though? Fill up the heat bar even further until it turns red, and you can unleash climax heat actions that hurt a whole lot more. The only downside to heat actions is that getting hit diminishes the heat bar, so trying to use climax heat actions can be a little tricky if you don't play your cards right. But if you can do it, oh does it feel good. Added from Yakuza 0 as well are the different fighting styles that can slightly change how you fight. The brawler style is your standard affair, quick enough and powerful enough to get by the game okay. The rush style makes Kiryu move a lot faster and is great for evading attacks, but he can't hit quite as hard as a consequence. The beast style is slow beyond compare, but you can ram through enemies like it's nothing, and Kiryu will automatically pick up nearby objects to smash their faces with. Finally, there's the Dragon style, which wasn't in Yakuza 0, which is basically a mix of all the styles. However, you can't learn new moves unless you do a crap ton of Coliseum battles and learn from this old man nearby, or by tackling Majima in random parts of the city. Now would be a good time to introduce the Majima Everywhere mechanic exclusive to Yakuza Kiwami. Majima will constantly be on the hunt for you as you roam Kamurocho, and you'll never know when or where he'll appear. If Majima has you in his sights, he'll run straight towards you and immediately engage in a fight, so you have to be on your toes at all times. As you win battles against Majima, your bond with him will slowly increase and allow you to learn more moves for the Dragon style. This sounds like a scary feature, but for the most part it's incorporated pretty smoothly into the game. I can only count maybe a couple of times where the encounters were a little too frequent and I just wanted to get a move on with things. Some of these things could involve mini games like billiards, darts, or karaoke, I love the last one, or chatting to a couple of girls in a cabaret club to kill some time and form bonds with. A few of these activities can also include facing against Majima for some competitive play. Most likely though, you'll find yourself taking part in the many sub-stories with the citizens of Kamurocho either needing Kiryu's help, or 80% of the time it'll be Kiryu not having much common sense and falling for some stupid scam, and thus you have to find the guys who conned him and kick their asses. Unless you're doing this one sub-story where kids are playing a rock paper scissors card game and you get to watch scantily clad women with bug headpieces wrestle to victory. And I would not suggest playing this in a house full of people. Am I playing Yakuza or Dead or Alive? Pre-teen porn aside, I first thought Kamarusha would be overly big with not a lot going on, like many other sandbox games, but to my surprise, the world is actually quite small by modern standards, and there are plenty of things to check out. Sometimes big things come in small packages. There are the mini-games and cabaret clubs, as I mentioned earlier, and also numerous cage fights in the Coliseum, in addition to tons of restaurants that fill up your health. In fact, eating everything on the menu is one of the ways to earn a completion point to spend on extra perks, like infinite sprinting or better defense. So it's pretty obvious at this point that I enjoy Yakuza Kiwami quite a bit, but I do have a couple of problems with it. Boss fights, for instance, regenerate their health after taking a certain amount of hits, which, as I've explained in my Devil May Cry 3 review, I think is a very cheap way to prolong the battle. You can cancel it by using a certain heat action, but you have to purchase it first, and the health regenerates too fast to get rid of all the extra stuff. The only other major issue I have with Kiwami, and sort of the Yakuza series in general, is that while fighting street thugs and Yakuza is perfectly fine out in Kamarusha and anywhere indoors with plenty of space, duking it out in cramped environments can sometimes lead to disaster. Kiryu gets knocked over pretty easily if you aren't paying attention, and every time that happens, you have to keep mashing the X button to bring him back up. And when you're trying to deal with so many enemies at once in a tight corridor, it's way more troublesome than it ought to be. This is a guy who can pick up a freaking motorcycle and smack it down on a lying thug, and yet he can't handle large crowds of people? Sheesh. Actually, Kiryu does a lot of dangerous moves like that. He's not really a cold-blooded killer, but these people would not survive half the stuff Kiryu pulls off. Need I go back to the motorcycle situation from before? Yeah, that guy's freaking dead. They're stupidly heavy. But you know, that is partially why I would recommend playing Yakuza Kiwami, as well as the entire series. Scenarios can often get pretty crazy, but it also knows when to settle down and take things a little seriously to flesh out the characters. Really though, I think the plot is more like an added bonus. The real stars come from the simple yet intricate combat system and the wacky situations you find yourself into, especially whenever Majima's involved. Kiwami is how I started getting into the Yakuza series, and I believe it's how you can too. So if you like what you see, go on and pick it up. It's relatively cheap too, and you'll get at least 15 to 30 hours worth of content. 30 hours is honestly a little too long for this kind of game, I find, but if you're just sticking with the main story, it should fill your appetites more than enough.
Let me know if you guys want me to do any more Yakuza games in the future, and I'll get them done as soon as possible. In the meantime, we have a fair bit to cover during 2020, ladies and gentlemen. Next time, we'll be doing Resident Evil 3 for the PS1 in time for the upcoming remake. We've got Bloodstained Ritual of the Night as well, since they fixed the Switch version a little, but still needs improving. I also really want to go over Metroid Samus Returns now that I finally have a 3DS capture card. And finally, this year's marathon will be on the Persona spin-offs, hopefully including Persona 5 Scramble whenever that arrives. I might also put in Katamari Damacy in between the marathon, but we'll see what happens. So we have a lot to talk about this year, but I hope you enjoy every single one of the videos I put out, and that you all have a good day. Take care, and I'll get them done as soon as possible. I forgot what I was gonna say. And I'll do them as soon as possible. God damn it. Next time, we'll be doing Resident Evil 3 in time for the upcoming remake. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night as well, since the Switch version's been fixed a little, but it still needs improving. I forgot